Welcome to the Daily Drop on Pro Ball Daily. I'm Mike.
And I'm Tara. And let me tell you, if you thought yesterday was wild, you ain't seen nothing yet. We've got upsets, blowouts, and some truly jaw-dropping numbers flying around the sports world today. Mike, where do we even begin?
Tara, I'm still reeling from that NBA score last night. We have to start there, right? The San Antonio Spurs absolutely steamrolled the Milwaukee Bucks, winning by a monstrous 32 points, 127-95. That's not just a win, that's a statement. And it clearly resonated with our power index because the Spurs are now sitting pretty at #1 in the NBA with 77.3 points.
A statement? Mike, that was an assassination against Giannis and the Bucks, who were supposed to be contenders. I mean, 32 points? That's not a fluke. That's a team firing on all cylinders, showcasing depth, defense, and an offense that Milwaukee just couldn't solve. It really makes you wonder, are the Spurs, dare I say it, the new favorites in the West? I know OKC is right there at 74.2, and the Nuggets are always a threat, but that kind of dominant performance, it shifts the narrative.
I think it absolutely does. They've been building, and we've been tracking them. But to see them execute at that level against a top-tier team, it's different. It shows they're not just beating up on the bottom feeders. But let's not forget some of the other wild NBA action. Chicago and Memphis went down to the wire, with the Grizzlies eking out a 1-point win, 125-124, and Philadelphia edged out Charlotte, 118-114, even though the Hornets are actually number 4 in our power index. So what do you make of the Hornets being so high in the rankings, but still dropping these close games?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The Power Index looks at overall strength, recent performance, team metrics. Charlotte is clearly a talented squad, sitting at 70 points, indicating they're playing good basketball overall. But the ability to close out against a team like Philly, that's where championship teams are made. It tells me they're almost there. They're competitive, they're exciting, but they might lack that one veteran presence, that one clutch shot maker consistently to push them over the top against established teams. It's the difference between being good and being elite.
That's a great point. And speaking of trends, the Atlanta Hawks are an absolute roller coaster. They were at 55% in February, a whopping 17.5% below their season baseline. And then in March, boom, 86% wins, 13.7% above their baseline. What did they drink in March? A different water source? A new coach? That's a massive turnaround in 1 month.
It's incredible, Mike. It suggests either a tactical change, a major player returning from injury, or just a team finally clicking and finding their rhythm. February could have been a slump, a tough schedule, or maybe they just weren't gelling. But to go from significantly underperforming to significantly overperforming, that speaks volumes about their potential. They went from looking like they'd missed the playoffs to being a team you definitely don't want to face right now. Their 123-113 win over Sacramento last night just underscores that new momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. From NBA, let's pivot to the ice, because the NHL gave us some absolute fireworks. Tara, what was the first score that jumped out at you? For me, it has to be the Calgary Flames and Vancouver Canucks, combining for 10 goals in a 7-3 Flames victory. That's a highlight reel game right there.
10 goals, Mike. That's not hockey, that's a video game. And a 7-3 scoreline isn't just a win for Calgary, it's a statement. They needed that kind of offensive explosion. Especially when you look at our power index, they're tied with the Utah Mammoth at 65.9 points. It's a tight race in the middle of that pack. Carolina Hurricanes still holding strong at the top with 72.8 points. New York Islanders not far behind. But the Mammoth, who are they? They're making a name for themselves.
The Mammoth are definitely an intriguing story. They've quietly climbed into the top 5, and tying with a traditional market like Calgary shows they're not just a flash in the pan. But let's talk about those other NHL trends because they're fascinating. The Boston Bruins were an absolute force in January, winning 91% of their games, a full 25.4% above their season baseline. Then March hit, and they plummeted to 54%, 10.4% below baseline. That's a complete collapse. What happened to the Bees?
It's like they ran out of gas, or perhaps teams figured them out. January was a dream, but March has been a nightmare. That kind of drop-off is concerning, especially as we head towards the playoffs. You want to be peaking, not tanking at this stage of the season. They've got to regroup, and fast. On the flip side, look at the Buffalo Sabres. 83% in March, 11.9% above their season baseline. They're surging. While Boston is unraveling, Buffalo is finding its stride.
It's a tale of 2 New York State teams, isn't it? Well, 1 New York State team and 1 Boston team. But it just goes to show you, momentum is everything in the NHL, and the Sabres are catching fire at exactly the right moment. But let's keep the energy high and move to some NCAA basketball because that bracket is starting to get interesting.
Oh, March Madness is brewing, Mike. And while Duke is still our #1 team in the Power Index at 83.6 points, no real surprise there, they're Duke after all, Arizona is right on their heels at 83.1 points, and they proved why last night by taking down Purdue 79-64. That's a dominant win against a strong program.
Absolutely. That's a statement win for Arizona. And then you've got teams like George Mason at 79.3 and Michigan at 77.9, both in our top 5. They're not the usual suspects necessarily, but they're clearly playing at an elite level. Are we seeing some dark horses emerge for a deep tournament run this year?
I think so. George Mason and Michigan in the top 5 ahead of perennial powerhouses like UConn, who are still a strong 74.6 points. It means they're consistently performing against good competition. And how about this stat? The Iowa State Cyclones win 60% of their games by 15-plus points. That's not just winning, that's dominance defined. They're not just beating teams, they're dismantling them.
Dominance, indeed. That speaks to a level of consistent execution that's hard to achieve in college basketball. And then you have St. John's, who went 100% in March, 11.1% above their season baseline. You talk about peaking at the right time, Tara. St. John's is doing exactly that. Could they be a serious upset pick in the tournament?
They absolutely could. A team that goes 100% in March has found something special. They're confident, they're gelling, and they're playing with house money. They're the kind of team that can take down a higher seed that's maybe resting on its laurels. And speaking of consistency, Duke has won 5 games by 15-plus points, which is 50% of their games, but their games also go under their average total of 145 points 40% of the time. What does that tell you about Duke? Are they grinding out wins or just playing stifling defense?
I think it tells you they're incredibly disciplined. They're winning big when they need to, but also controlling the tempo and playing stout defense, keeping scores low when necessary. It's a sign of a team that can adapt to different opponents and game situations, which is crucial for a deep tournament run. They're not just relying on offensive fireworks, they're building from the defensive end, and that's usually the recipe for success in March.
You got it, Mike. All right, let's switch gears completely and talk some baseball because the MLB season is well underway and we've got some early contenders shaping up.
Oh, absolutely, Tara. The Atlanta Braves are looking like the early juggernauts, sitting atop our power index at 67.4 points, and they proved why last night, taking down the Kansas City Royals 6-2, with Michael Wacha putting on an absolute clinic, posting a 72 MLB rating. That's a dominant outing, setting the tone early in the season.
Wacha looked fantastic, and that's exactly what you want from your rotation ace early in the season. The Braves are just a stacked team, and they're showing it. But let's not overlook the Cleveland Guardians and St. Louis Cardinals, right there at 59.3 and 59 points respectively. They're quietly putting together strong starts to the season, ready to challenge those top spots.
They absolutely are. And the Chicago Cubs had a statement game, crushing the Washington Nationals 10-2. That's an offensive outburst that'll get the Wrigleyville faithful excited. But my favorite score from last night has to be the absolute slugfest between the Angels and Astros, with Houston winning 11-9. That's a game for the fans, a back-and-forth battle with runs galore.
You can't ask for more from an early season rivalry game. And while we're talking about early season, some trends are already raising eyebrows. The Boston Red Sox, bless their hearts, went 30% in March, a full 10% below their season baseline. Mike, is it already time to panic in Boston?
Panic? Tara, I think some fans started panicking in February. That's a rough start. You want to build momentum, not dig yourself into a 10-foot hole before April even hits. It's a long season, but that kind of early slump can be mentally taxing. They need to find their footing quickly, or it's going to be a very long summer at Fenway.
It certainly could be. But on the flip side, how about the Oakland Athletics? They went 63% in March, 7.5% above their season baseline. Are we seeing a quiet resurgence from the A's, or is this just an early season anomaly?
You know, it's early, so you have to be careful with definitive statements. But for a team that's been struggling for a while, any positive trend is huge. It gives them something to build on. Maybe they're finally seeing some of their prospects mature, or they found some overlooked talent. It's certainly a story worth watching to see if they can sustain that momentum. You just love to see it for a fan base that's been through a lot.
Absolutely, Mike. From the diamond to the pitch, let's take a quick swing through the soccer world. MLS has NYCFC holding strong at 70.8 points in our power index, with Real Salt Lake nipping at their heels at 70.2. It's a tight race at the top there.
It definitely is. And over in the EPL, Arsenal continues their dominance, sitting comfortably at number 1 with a massive 90.8 points. They are just head and shoulders above the rest right now. Everton is surprisingly high at number 2 with 76.9 points, which is a great story for them.
Yeah, Everton at number 2 is definitely something to pay attention to. And then a quick note on La Liga, no games today, but Barcelona is still holding that top spot in our power index with 78.6 points, keeping Real Madrid at a respectable but still distant second place. They just continue to own that league.
They absolutely do. All right, Tara, we've covered a lot of ground today. If you had to pick one single biggest takeaway from everything we've discussed, what would it be?
Mike, I'm going with the San Antonio Spurs. Their 32-point demolition of the Milwaukee Bucks and claiming the top spot in our power index signals that they are not just contenders, but possibly the team to beat right now. That kind of dominance from a team we might not have pegged as the top dog a few weeks ago, that's the story of the day.
I love that take, Tara. And looking ahead, I think everyone needs to keep their eye on the NHL. Those trends we saw with Boston unraveling and Buffalo surging, plus the incredible offensive output in the Flames-Canucks game, tomorrow could be huge for how those races shake out as teams either recover or continue their hot streaks.
That's your Daily Drop for today. For scores, rankings, and everything in between, head to ProBallDaily.com. We'll see you tomorrow.